The oldest parishioner at St. Mary's in Cooksaki died this week. Anne Feth was 106. Amazing woman. And I went to visit her in the last year that she lived alone before she moved to nursing care. She lived at Bethany Village until she was 104. And I went to visit her there, and I asked her the same kind of question I asked someone like Mary Carnabucci, the parishioner here who's turning 104 this year. And I asked her, what is the secret? Tell me the secret to living a long and meaningful life the way that you have. And she said, the secret, Father, is just to live 1 minute at a time. And I said, Anne, I believe you, but how? That's so hard. How do you just live 1 minute at a time? And as only someone her age with her wisdom could say, she said, well, you can't very well live 2 minutes at a time, can you? So just live one. She was born in 1914. She was 4 years old when the Spanish flu came. And she got to 106, living 1 minute at a time. All of the readings are pointing that direction today. All of them are about living this minute. And I loved that second reading. And I think it actually contains the secret. I think Paul is giving us a hack, so to speak, into figuring out how to live in the moment. He says, live as if time is running out. Don't be thinking, oh, I'll do that next year. Or, oh, maybe in my 60s I'll try that, or whatever the upcoming decade will be for you. No. He says, the world is passing. Assume that today could be the last day. Live that way. That is how you can make this minute matter. And it's interesting that the pathway to sainthood crosses right through this moment. There's no path to sainthood. There's no pathway to heaven except right through here. That's how saints become saints. No one's born a saint. All of us have each moment to live with our choices so that we can find our way, one moment, one choice at a time, all the way to heaven. Maybe you've heard the story of the Plymouth colony. There was a famous event that happened in that colony back in 1638 because the colonial assembly, the kind of legislature of the colony, was meeting, and in the middle of their meeting, in the middle of the day, the sky went dark. That's because there was a total eclipse of the sun that day. Now, if they had lived in our times, they would have heard in the news that morning, just so you know, everybody, and they would have said, now don't look directly at the sun while it's happening. But they didn't know that then. So as these Puritans were meeting, the sky went black, and they assumed, naturally, that it was the end of the world. So a big debate broke out, and some people said, let's go home. If this is the end of the world, I want to be with my family. But a significant majority said, no. If God is coming here right now, I want God to see me doing my duty. I want God to find me doing exactly what my work was to do in this moment. And so they got some candles, and they continued the meeting in the dark. That'll always be our choice, what to do with the moment. And we just saw this from our own legislators on January 6th, the day of that riot at the Capitol. So frightening. And they were all whisked away to safety. And then you would assume, wouldn't you, that the Capitol would be closed for a couple of weeks. We got to clean this up. We've got to get... No. They met again at 8 p.m. And they met and kept meeting until 4 in the morning. Same thing. This might be the end of the world, but God's got to find us doing our duty, even till 4 in the morning. I think St. Paul is exactly right. The way that we can live in the moment is imagining that this moment might be all we have. And it's not unreasonable to think that way because we have no promise for later today or for tomorrow. And people who've been through sudden experiences in life know that. And so what Jesus says in the gospel is, this is the time of fulfillment. This is it. The kingdom of God is at hand. You're in it. You're in the moment. This is the time. You don't have to wait. And I think part of living his word that way is acknowledging that God could have chosen for us to be born any time in history. We could have been born any time. That's God's decision. But God chose for us to be born now. God chose for Ann Feth to be born in 1914. And God has chosen for us to be born whenever it was that we were, and to be alive here and now for these times. And so we're called to respond now to the times in which we live. And we do it with the blueprint that's been given to us by Jesus. Every priest has to prepare for Mass by choosing a Eucharistic prayer. That's the prayer in the second part of Mass that has the consecration as part of it. And you may have looked at a missalette or a missal before. I know some people like to bring missals with them to Mass. And if you do that, you'll notice that there are a lot of choices for the priest to make, because there are 4 regular Eucharistic prayers that you'll find, but then there's a bunch of others too. The church has set aside 2 other ones for the theme of reconciliation. We usually do those in Lent or other times. There's other ones for various needs. And then there are 3 additional Eucharistic prayers for when you're having Mass with children. So it's 13 Eucharistic prayers in total. And the priest chooses the one that most fits the theme of that Mass. And so today I turned through the Eucharistic prayers and I chose Eucharistic prayer for various needs number 3. Not a very inspiring name, but it's perfect for today. Here's one of the things you'll hear me pray in your name coming up in just a few minutes. God, looking into the signs of the times by the light of faith, may we constantly devote ourselves to the gospel. Figuring out what is ours to do in this moment, let us take a look at that with the gospel in this other hand, and let us go forward to meet this moment, whatever it is. And we hear in the gospel, you're not going to get a blast of trumpets to let you know that this moment is meaningful. You have to just trust Jesus on his word. James and John, Peter and Andrew, they didn't get a blast of trumpets. They saw a man walk up to their boat and say, "Follow me, today's the day." There was not going to be a vision that accompanied that allowed them to know, oh no, he's serious, you better go. They just had to be open to the moment. And that's exactly what we're called to do as well. So this week, we are being challenged to respond to our moment. Right now, right here. This is the time of fulfillment. What are what the church calls the signs of the times telling you? What are you being called to do? What am I being called to do in this moment, 2021, with exactly what our lives and our community and our society are dealing with right now? You know, because these are intense times, some people are responding to the intensity with reactions like violence. But then they're ignoring that doesn't follow the blueprint. Help us constantly commit ourselves to the gospel, we'll say in that prayer. So we can't choose a response that doesn't fit the blueprint. We've already gotten that. That's what we live our lives by. And we take that and meet this moment knowing it is the time of fulfillment. So that Eucharistic prayer that I'm going to pray in a few minutes is going to go on from the part I just read to say this: God, help us to be attentive to the needs of all, so that sharing their grief and pain, their joy and hope, we may faithfully bring them the good news of salvation, and then go forward with them along the way of your kingdom. There's no other way to do that except through this moment, and then the next, and then the next, one moment at a time. That's what Ann Feth taught me. She said, well, you can't live 2 minutes at a time, can you? So just live one. This one.